Hey, good morning, church. Thank you so much for joining me yet again. It is my privilege to do these videos, and I trust that you are blessed by them. This morning, we're going to look at Acts chapter 16, verses 25 and 26. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened and everyone's bonds were unfastened. Church, there's two incredibly powerful lessons in this passage. More, I'm sure, but two that I want to highlight this morning. One, the importance of worship. The beauty of worship. We have been given the privilege and the honor to worship God. We've been created to worship Him, and this is exactly what we must do with our lives. But I want you to focus, or notice rather, the focus of their worship. Paul and Silas weren't worshiping God for what He had done. If you look around, their situation hadn't changed. They were still in chains. They were in prison. They were still trapped. The hand of the Lord hadn't delivered them. They weren't giving God worship and thanks for what He had done for them. They were giving God worship and thanks for who He is. They're worshiping who He is, and we have to learn from that. We far too often get caught up into the cycle of waiting for God to do something for us to then give Him thanks. These guys were thanking God before He did anything for them. They had no way of knowing that He was going to set them free, but that wasn't the condition for their worship. They were worshiping Him because of who He is. And far too often, we seek God's hands and we don't seek His face. We wait to give God thanks and worship only if He's done something to our benefit. But He already has done something to our benefit on the cross. He will forever be worthy of all worship. And had He never done anything, He would still be worthy of worship for who He is. Only God is the all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful, omnipresent God. He deserves our worship and our praise, not for what He has done, but for who He is. And that is specifically important in a season like now, where maybe you look around and it seems like it's hard to see the hand of God at work. And if you're waiting for God to move in a specific way to your liking, if you're holding conditions before you give God thanks, that speaks to the idolatry in your own heart. We need to learn to give God worship, the worship that He is due, the worship He deserves for who He is, because who He is never changes. Therefore, we should always have worship and praise upon our lips. We should not wait for God to move before we decide we're going to stir ourselves up to have affection for Him in response and therefore give Him glory. No. God deserves the glory always for who He is. But secondly, I want you to notice what the passage says. It says, others were listening. Which means even in their chains, even wrapped in the cell, even stuck in prison, even before God had delivered them, they were being a witness to those around them as to how they behaved in this situation. How would they handle things in this condition? Would these individuals remove their worship from God now that it seemed God had abandoned them? Or would they continue to glorify the Lord even in the middle of their trial? Others were listening. And church, people right now are watching us. They are watching the church to see how we behave. How real and genuine is our faith? And is our faith rooted in God for who He is and this unwavering, unshakable truth in His scriptures? Or is our faith simply superficial based upon whether or not today I have things to my liking? The world is watching. And so whether we worship God in truth is a matter of our own hearts. It shows where our hearts are in worship to Him. But also our witness is a public witness. People will see whether or not we can sing to our God the praises of His name before deliverance has come, before the hand of God has moved. And so church, I just want to encourage you today and challenge you to get alone with God and give Him glory and give Him praise and worship the Lord for who He is, because who He is doesn't change. So it doesn't matter what we're going through. It doesn't matter the hardships and the challenges and the difficulties that we are encountering. Our God is forever worthy of praise. And so we must give Him that praise and trust that in the process, perhaps He will move in things towards our benefit. And even if He doesn't, that doesn't change the fact that He is worthy of that praise. Because we also know there is a day for all believers where God will move all things to our benefit, to His glory. Because He has promised us a day where He will return and make all things well. Therefore, there's always reason to give God worship. There's always reason to give God thanks. If you're waiting to look for a sign of God's faithfulness towards you, look back at the cross and look forward at the future promise. And may that be alone enough to stir your affections towards Him so that you worship Him. Church, I encourage you to do that. Follow the example of Paul and Silas. Worship God for who He is, not for what He's done. Seek His face, not His hands. And as you do that, may you experience the life that comes from that. And may others who look in on your life see that and be stirred by that. Thank you so much. It's been my joy again to make these videos. I hope that it's been an encouragement to you, and look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. God bless.